It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. The guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
Welcome to Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs, a podcast podcasted weekly from a kitchen bench in Kingsland, Auckland, New Zealand. My name's Lewis. I'm the host of said show, as regular listeners will know. Although some of you this week might be new listeners. I hope we get new listeners every week, actually. But this week in particular, I have a funny feeling there'll be a good number of you, because last time I put someone from the telly on, from the broadcast telly. I had a particular spike in numbers. So from Verity Johnson a few weeks ago, we continue the tradition of New Zealand television heavyweights with stand-up comedian, panel show host, game show host, Mr. Henwood. A lovely chat, a really lovely fellow. Good people was a prerequisite, aside from people kind of doing recognisable stuff in New Zealand. And no one's let me down yet. Yet another person who graciously gave up their time for nada to come and chat. And I hope for the people who do give their time, as I say, they get something from it as well. Perhaps a chance to answer and chat about things they've done, answer questions and chat about things they've done for longer than the standard kind of soundbite that we're often afforded these days, or the same 5 questions you get asked everywhere. So enjoy the show. Some nice wee anecdotes of being on the road as a comedian, how he had to switch his lifestyle around a bit owing to being a late night party guy comedian. Other good stuff, tales of Roll the Die when it happened in the outback in Australia. As I say, not worth telling you too much, because otherwise what's the point in the hour or so that follows. Just got the water back on, because the landlord's doing a kind of Airbnb thing where the building seems to be slowly turning into a multi-level, multi-unit private motel, which is lovely. I've met some interesting people thus far, but yeah, the water was off, and only I would be fully aware and told of that fact and come home from work and decide to prepare a fish chowder from scratch, including some rather healthy funky kawai, but couldn't wash the hands. Started to smell perhaps like a netball team that's been trapped in a bus for 2 days on a hot mountaintop. Yep. Not much else to report this week. Sometimes no news is good news, and other such cliches abound. Please follow me at Verbal Highs on Twitter, at Verbal Highs Podcast on Facebook. You can reach me privately through the website, verbalhighs.com, or even email. Hey, how about that? Email. Is that going the way of text messaging? Emailing? Most people message me through Facebook chat now. Anyway, don't do that. You can email me at verbalhighs@gmail.com, all one word. Well, actually, all 2 words stuck together to make one word. Hey! Speaking of hey, great feedback on Mr. Havoc last week, and stoked that he wants to keep coming back. So I didn't want to burden him with having to kind of do it too much. Make it special for the both of us. So I said, how about quarterly? And he said, yep. So I said, okay, start thinking about more stories before May. Not that he'd have to come up with an hour and 20 of great stories. And as he said himself in the podcast, we only kind of scratched the surface. So Mikey will be the first regular guest we have. Speaking of guests, before I wrap up, or upcoming guests, I have a long-standing and revered chef coming on the podcast. And I thought with that one, yeah, we can talk about his background and how he ended up where he is and doing what he's doing. But also we could open up that podcast to feedback from the listeners before the episode, whereby you get in touch and ask me anything you want to know about food and about cooking, no matter how big or small it is. So maybe, seasonal vegetables. Maybe you haven't even cracked how to boil an egg, a soft egg, properly. Think about that. You could have one of New Zealand's best telling you how to do that. Anything you want. So hit me up through any of those channels. Enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Di Henwood.
This is Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs.
Joe Rogan, I'd really enjoy it because mainly I've listened to far too many podcasts.
Oh, then you know exactly.
I know exactly. Yeah. No, I flick between Mark Maron, Joe Rogan, really like Tim Ferriss when he has.
I've got to start. See, I need new ones because.
Oh no, Tim Ferriss is great. He's sort of more, I suppose, about people's routines that make them successful, and then finding.
But he does an interview with like someone reasonably well known, and
it's someone reasonably well known. It's sort of more someone who's big, but you might not know them, like an obscure chess champion or someone like that.
Yeah, okay.
Mark Maron, I really like, and then sometimes I go, oh, mate, you're just talking about your issues with your dad. Right? You got Bruce Springsteen here. You've asked him a leading question, and then you're
that's the same with me. I mean,
and then he goes into this superb sort of neurotic Jewish alcoholic.
Yeah, no, he. I know what you mean, but having said that, I have found Rogan to be the same. Like sometimes it's because I think he does 3 or 4 a week, and sometimes it feels like he's just, I don't know whether his mind's somewhere else or whatever. Oh, actually, no, I think what it might be is sometimes I feel like when he doesn't, he feels a little bit, what's the word? Like he doesn't know the topic that well.
Yeah.
He tends to just overcompensate. And I've heard ones where I've gone fuck, I wonder if I broke this down, whether there'd be 21 minutes of the guest and 2 hours and 40 minutes of Rogan,
Yeah, where he goes on the slow sort of... Rogan takes long podcasts to another level.
But 3 or 4 a week? That long?
At 3 to 4 hours.
That's because I'm reading between the lines. It's the money he made doing. What's that show? Fear Factor.
Yeah, because that's what sort of banked him. Is he did
totally.
And the UFC stuff he must get a bit for, but nothing like what Fear Factor.
So you're going to retire from Family Feud and start doing 19 hours of podcasts a week?
Yeah, maybe. Just kidding. His Russell Brand one's quite a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Just because Russell Brand's someone I find fascinating and superbly annoying all at the same time.
Yeah, that's a great description.
Because sometimes I really lock into him and go, dude, I'm on your wavelength 100%. And other times it's you've gone from this sort of left-wing focus guy to this fluffy Hollywood,
Yeah, and then sometimes it's really pointed and really amazing kind of poetic, articulate use of vocabulary, and then sometimes I'll look a word up and go, that word doesn't even exist.
Yeah, but it's that British way of using it.
Yeah.
Because I used to love his radio show with Noel Gallagher, actually.
Oh, I never heard that.
Because Noel Gallagher is one of those just deeply, quietly funny...
Oh, he's amazing.
Who
I wouldn't say quietly.
No, but compared to Russell Brand in a radio, Russell Brand's so fluffity, and then he'll just be sniping these just jibes at him the whole time.
The kind of the perfect kind of comic duo.
Yeah. And also because he's got the ins on so many musicians and isn't afraid to say what he thinks.
Is that because he did that? Oh, sorry, Noel Gallagher. I was thinking of Noel Fielding.
No, Noel Gallagher, Oasis.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I was thinking of Noel. Have you ever seen that? Never Mind the Buzzcocks.
Yeah.
Did you get into that? Being a panel?
Yeah.
That's when Noel Fielding's brilliance. Well, obviously outside of Mighty Boosh, but that's where his brilliance really struck me. Some of the moments on that show, just you ever see that when he was on with that woman Paloma Faith? Have you heard of her?
Oh, yes.
Those two would make some kind of strangely perfect couple if they were both already together. Right, so
cool.
Best I say who's here.
Yes.
Okay, this is about as organised as it gets, mate.
Sweet as.
Okay, my guest is a Billy T and Riley comic and Fred award-winning stand-up comedian, TV host, actor, and wedding DJ.
Yes.
I've done my research. Welcome, Di.
Hi, welcome. Thanks very much, Lewis. It's actually been a long time since I would have seen you in the face. But this is the joy of social media, actually. You know, when you've got people who you've crossed paths with, whether it be for short periods of time or long periods of time, and then you sort of
you're aware.
You're vaguely aware of who they are.
Yeah. And you had that weird thing now, which is kind of can be a blessing and a curse, but that weird thing now where you haven't seen someone for 4.5 years and you end up briefly chatting at a party or something and they know about everything you've been doing.
Yeah, and then it's sort of spooky.
Which should be just for you, you know, like in the TV world, but it's now, I guess, we're all in the TV world.
Absolutely.
In one way or another, you know. So I was thinking about that, back in Wellington, I mean, we never really spent a lot of time together. We're probably, you know, I think back then often just age and what you're doing, you know, has a factor to play in that, because a couple of years can be a reasonably big difference. So I think you were a couple of years back from me at school, not at my school. Yeah. But maybe the same year as like Barney from the Black Seeds at Wellington College.
Yeah, well,
right?
Barney was a year below me, and then once we left school, we ended up being sort of very tight through university. I was at school with Will there was Barney below me, Will Harris, who he was a best friend of mine, and superb and obscure reggae DJ.
Yeah.
And
Danny's protege.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then a year ahead was Brett McKenzie. So sort of there was, in this 3 years, there was quite an artistic group of people, and we all sort of did various bits and bobs together.
And Thingy, the horn player for Fat Freddy's, or maybe
Toby,
Wellington College as well.
Yeah. Toby Lang. But no, and also, but with Wellington, it's that thing of, I know, like, we had similar interests musically and sort of party-wise, and that thing of where, even if there's a couple of years here and there, circles in Wellington very much intersect. The Venn diagrams are...
Did you start to find it like I love Wellington. I go back and it's not just where I was born. I'm pretty sure it's just got this... It's got quite a trippy feel to it, whether it's because it's in all those, you know, all those hills around it and stuff. So I really, really love the place. But yeah, that confinedness of people does start to become quite full on after a while, doesn't it?
I always had sort of way coming through of moving into, I always wanted to do sort of stand-up comedy, but my family are very much a sort of old school theatre family in Wellington. They started with a group of people, Circa Theatre, which is now, I suppose, it's targeted at, it's more mainstream theatre. And the thing of, because Dab is a very recognisable actor and I wasn't going into acting, I sort of always felt that I needed to leave Wellington in a way, just to go and do it.
Things like nepotism, or...
Yeah, I always had that sort of fight against, I never wanted people to think I could organise a gig there.
Put the Henwood boy on!
Yeah. Or I could organise gigs at Circa because I had a bit of an into... Yeah. So I sort of had that need to burst out. And talking to people in different areas in Wellington, some people do get that small town, it's a bit too small. And in terms of stand-up comedy, and I sort of wanted to do more TV work, by that time it had all left Wellington from... They used to use Avalon Studios out in the heart, which is... amazing. Like, I was looking back, I was in the old, was it one of those Live Aids, when Live Aid was the thing? Telethon?
Live Aid.
No, but they...
You and Bob Geldof.
They did a version of it over here, like, Do We Know It's Christmas? And they got all the kids.
Oh, yeah.
And they got all the kids, like, I'm talking when I would have been 5-ish, like in the early 80s.
Yeah.
And it was all done out at Avalon. But it's a full sound studio with lighting rigs and live audiences. And I grew up out there going to... My dad was in a sitcom called Gliding On.
You don't have to tell me that.
Right. And
I honestly I have great memories of that show.
Well, it was... Weirdly, I think it's still to this day New Zealand's most successful sitcom. There's nothing...
Sense, yeah.
Because we haven't really done sitcoms since then. And we're like ones that have gone on for more than a season. Yeah.
What about Melody Rules? Come on.
Well, that was Melody Rules, for a show I've never seen.
Could have possibly done with some Roger Hall treatment.
Yeah, was also the bane of my life, because I came through in comedy when comedy in New Zealand had a really bad name.
Just from that sitcom.
Yeah, because there was Billy T finished. Then there was this real feel of, if you're not Billy T, just don't do it, mate. Like, because Melody Rules was out there. There wasn't. It was sort of just pub gigs. You had to go out and really prove yourself. It was that thing of where New Zealand music was maybe about 5 years ahead of us. They used to have that.
Yeah.
Then New Zealand Music Month came in, and then they had their big resurgence, and comedy was about 5 years behind that before people actually started trusting them.
Do you think it's caught up now?
Oh, completely.
And what's caused that? Well, aside from obviously good comedians being around and pushing the craft.
It's that thing of everyone if you're going to be talented, you need some work. Yeah. And so it was the thing of there was Mike King and Ewan Gilmore and Radar and Sugar and Spice. They were doing great stuff, but then there was a big gap, and so it took a few years for us all to cut our teeth and get given a bit of... And so then when you got some exposure, you actually had the chops to do something.
So you saying to me there was almost a period where New Zealand comedy was doing it so tough that almost like a whole age group or generation of comics doesn't exist. It goes straight from Radar and so on to you guys.
Yeah, it suddenly just dropped down.
Wow.
And so then I started the year the Classic Comedy Bar was opened on Queen Street in 1997.
Yeah.
And so it was like that caused the big renaissance, because it was somewhere where it felt bona fide to the public and to comedians.
Multiple nights a week.
It was a comedy. It was a place where you go to see comedy. It had the brick wall. It had the setup. You weren't going into a bar. Like, I was doing gigs in Levin Cosmopolitan Club, where the mic went through the tannoy. This would have been my fourth or fifth gig, and I'm halfway through, and it was connected to the kitchen, and it would just cut out and go, number 63, steak and chips. And then that was funny for a couple of times, but then it was just so disconcerting.
And you were booking these yourself, just trying to get shows?
Yeah, I was booking some shows. There was a small group of us who were just booking shows and doing bits and bobs wherever we can. And just thinking back now, there's just old mates with their pubs, with their pints in Levin, just watching us, and we'd be like 18, just getting up. We'd be doing sort of, I'd call it now late 90s character comedy, which was sort of like, I was dressing up and just doing some real left field shit, and these guys are just your real bog stand. Cosmopolitan and Levin at that time were not really
a bit of an oxymoron.
Yeah. But then it's that flip side of doing it real hard. I think artistically is often proves to suit you well, because you take knocks. I mean, I took a lot of knocks, lost a lot of money, and embarrassed myself at international festivals. And
also there's two distinct doors you can take after that, isn't it? There's the one where you keep going, and the other one where you fucking something completely different. Yeah,
because for me, I had that going, because I won the Billy T Award over here and thought, wow, I've got this amazing show. If I'm ever going to go overseas and try it, now's the time.
Yeah.
Went to Melbourne. That was at the same time as I've been doing some stuff, bits and bobs down in Wellington, and been involved in sort of comedy plays here and there with Brett McKenzie, and him and Jermaine were just starting out with the Concords.
Yeah.
And Taika and Jermaine had been doing Humour Beasts, and then they all sort of had hooked up with Rhys Darby a year before in Edinburgh, and I went, I'll go over there. And I was living...
So there's a real powerhouse of all of you, wasn't there?
Yeah, and I was living over there with the Concords as they broke.
Wow.
Over there.
So the bar is set high.
Yeah, but the thing is, it was like, they set such a bar of New Zealand comics, these amazing musical thing, and I was doing a very different vibe. They had been very good at going to Edinburgh, and so before they really broke, they'd just built this base of audience.
Hardcore fans.
Yeah, hardcore fans that also comprised of a lot of influencers in the comedy scene who are comics who would finish a show, go along, and we'd just go along and we'd be necking some beers and just cheering them because it was like, it's amazing that, because they were.
So you're saying all the kind of cool comedy tastemakers, that was the one to go to after show. Wow.
And then of course the next year, that's when your general public just hit it. And I remember I was there and I opened my first show and I had 100 people packed and I got a standing ovation and I went, oh shit, this is actually not, Edinburgh's pretty sweet, I've got a good show. And then I tanked for 24 days in a row. I had 30 people in the audience, 28 of them walked out 10 minutes into the show.
Are you serious? Are you exaggerating? You had two left.
I had 2 left, and this is deadly serious. I stopped. It was more of a comedy play acting thing, and I stopped and I went, just got to ask, man, why are you here? And he was about 65, and he went, is your mum Carolyn Henwood? And I went, yeah. And he goes, I think I went to school with her in Mana. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then it just got awkward and I ended up just having a beer with him. But
so you didn't even finish the show?
No, and then I had to cancel shows. And then I was living with Brett and Jermaine at this. And we're on these 2 different paths of them, you know, and this was the real moment where it's like, it's not like you're over there with a group and you're all struggling. It's like, boom, they're smashing it. Can we ask to go on this gala? Can you go on that gala? Can you do that? You know, and I can't buy a spot. And Brett counselled me through some amazingly hard times. Yeah. And it was that thing of, as you get artistically, where, I mean, so proud of them, and they're doing such a different style to me because I'm not musical at all, that you're not conflicting. You're not jealous, but you obviously are jealous of their...
You're questioning a few things.
Yeah, but you're jealous of their crowds, obviously. Yeah. But it's that thing of then, that was such a moment of... And along with that, I'm losing 10,000 quid as a 18-year-old.
Where are you finding 10,000 quid to lose 10,000 quid?
Oh, I borrowed money from anywhere I could. I'd done so many fundraising shows over here. And it's that thing of where I'd lost 5,000 up front, then owed. Because they work it where it goes, you pay 40% venue hire on a full house, regardless of whether there's 2 people in there or... Like, it's...
Is this how the Edinburgh Festival works?
Yeah, it's the same as musicians complaining about labels, where you're basically doing it for exposure. Right. With a great season over there, you might come out with $1,000 in your pocket. But I did that, and then I came back sort of tail between my legs a bit, got over here, then just started... doing live comedy.
What sort of era are we in around here?
Around here, this is 2004.
Okay, 2004. Yep.
I ditched doing character stuff. I thought.
Right. So you'd already, if you started in '97, you'd actually already spent a long time in the stage just honing your craft in New Zealand. And you'd actually gone overseas 2003, 2004 for the first time. Yeah,
because 2002 was where I'd sort of got. Won a Billy T, which at that time meant so much because it was.
Why do you say at that time? Does it more than now?
Well, now I think we've got a very established comedy scene, and there's a bit more trust. Like there, it seemed to be. Yeah. You had to pin your name on something, and also I think having been involved in award shows, even award shows that I've won, often the best person sometimes doesn't win. Like when I was doing it, there's like Rhys Darby had been there a couple of times, you know, and now he's shot to living in Hollywood and various different things. And I never think in the arts awards are such a random thing because everyone does such a different style. It's even like you know, like
it's like winning the music award. It's like, well, how
Well, it's like, you know, Adele and Beyonce people going, well, it should go to Beyonce. It should go. We'll go. This is very different. They're amazing. They're 2 amazing albums. You know, it's that thing of going... So someone creating a loser and a winner out of that situation. However, when you're the winner... I was
just going to say... Hey, don't talk it down too much.
It's a lot easier to say when you're the winner. But no...
That sounds like a completely worthless award. Right? Yeah. Thanks for explaining that. Cheers.
Sorry,
I took you off track there. So you came back to New Zealand. You'd had your best mates basically being shot to stardom in a cannon.
Because then you've
lost a bit of money. You're deciding what to do next. You get back here, and
And go back to the classic. I'm determined. Weirdly, if anything, that solidified the fact I wanted to do it. Wow. I came back here. I sort of thought I've got to ditch the character. I want to find my own voice.
Is this P-Funk Chainsaw?
Yeah, P-Funk Chainsaw. I was doing a bank teller from Taranaki.
You were doing a hard house DJ from...
Oh, yeah, hard house DJ from Tokoroa. It was all about rural beats.
Yeah, BZP.
Yeah. when we moved on from raves in Wellington where it was just smart drinks to then the BZP came in.
Yeah.
Speaking of raves in Wellington, I remember being at a rave in Wellington where Thomas Heckman, who was like he had a tune, German. He had a tune called Amphetamine that was sort of one of the biggest techno tunes. He was on stage and this dude ran up, stole his keyboard and legged it out of the shed down by the railway station down there. And he cancelled the gig. We'd all paid to go in.
Oh, right, I don't remember that. Maybe that was after I left.
Yeah, it would have been just before I'd left Wellington.
Good old Wellington.
They were some great days.
Cowboy town.
Yeah, but then I just sort of kept honing my craft. I went back to Edinburgh, just doing lineup shows.
What does that mean?
Which means where I'm not investing the money, I'm not doing an hour. It means I'm sort of just doing 15 minutes on various different bills.
Oh, yes, like a just for laughs kind of a scenario, little bits. And
so then that for me ended up being a better situation. I'm getting myself in front of a lot of different faces.
Yeah.
You know, they're not having to go, I'm going to go and see Henwood, no idea who he is. So I did that. Then I came back, I stayed in Aussie for a bit with Jesse Griffin, who is Wilson Dixon, who also at the same time was blowing up. I always like to stay with musical acts who are really nailing it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, but no, we
should have been a music manager.
Ended up over in London, and he was staying in North London. I was in South London with Rhys Darby living at his place. Then I caught the train up to meet Jesse, and that was the train in 2016 when the bombings happened.
No way, you were on that train?
And it happened. I'd gone 4 stops past, and it happened, and then they shut down the train line, and I got to Jesse's, and I went... We thought, right, London's under attack now, so we just got lots of beers and hunkered up in this flat and watched Test cricket for 5 days and monitored the news, and that sort of solidified us as close mates.
Right.
And then made my way back here. I got back to New Zealand and just started touring and gigging. And
so where are we? I'm a timeline guy.
Yeah.
Where are we here now?
Now we're 2005 coming into 2006.
You know what's funny here for me? Like I was away from. I'm obviously coming back and stuff, but I lived away from New Zealand, 2000 to 2007, and so I just came back and assumed you'd been on the TV and all the rest of it that whole time, and the way I saw you when I came back in 07, but it didn't really hit till around then, eh? The kind of
2006.
Yeah,
I was doing a gig. A mate of mine, Ben Hurley, pulled out of hosting a gig. He was sick on a Monday night. I filled in for him, hosted it. It was a Raw night where it's rookie comics. And then afterwards, Andrew Schusterman, who's the programming director at TV3, he came up and just went, do you want a job doing...
was that Paul?
This was insert video here, which was where I was going out interviewing drunk people on the street, which hadn't been on New Zealand TV, that sort of take on it.
Is that where you had that hard house DJ character?
Yeah.
So I think that must have been what I was watching when I came back in 07.
So I'd sort of tooted around with that on the stage.
Yeah.
And then he said, this is your director, Mikey Carpenter, who's become my best mate. He's a editor. He was in possibly New Zealand's most famous band, AutoZam. And
New Zealand's most funded band.
Yes, and then we became best mates. We made this show for a year, and it just took off with this late teen audience. Like, we got ratings C4 had never seen before. Wow. We just spiked randomly. We played music videos along a theme, and then just had these breaks of me going down and talking to drunk homeless people.
And it was all around New Zealand, eh? It wasn't just...
No, and then once it had gone well for a year, then we expanded it, and there was a book called The Dice Man, which was this guy who made every decision in his life based on rolling a dice. So we thought we'd spin that theme, and we got big inflatable dice. We'd go somewhere, we'd get them to write...
Roll the die. Yeah.
Roll the die. Then we'd get someone to write on the die where we should go and what we should do. Then we'd roll it and we'd go and do that.
Yeah.
We did that in New Zealand. That went really well. So then we went and did Australia with it, or the Outback with it, which was one of the most challenging and intense moments of my life, because it's
a different breed of people, right?
Yeah, and the guy who was taking us...
Any sticky situations?
Our guide was... He used to do music outreach programs to Aboriginal communities.
Right.
So we were going and visiting these Aboriginal communities and hearing these harrowing stories.
Yeah.
And he was skinned. He's a white guy, but he was skinned, which means he's been given an Aboriginal... animal name. And
I've never heard of that. Right, wow.
So basically it means if he goes to another Aboriginal tribe, he tells his story and they know he's been accepted.
Right.
So we go in and we're like getting pulled over by cops with guns going, "What are you doing? You can't bring these black fellas into this pub, mate." You know, and going to the black fellas, "You boys know where you need to be." And it's like we're Kiwis, going, in New Zealand, these cops will be in jail. We're staying on a...
So just out and out overt, no argument, racism.
Just dead, when you're going, I feel like I'm in 60s America or something. This guy goes, "Hey, do you want to come down to the corner of my property where I used to keep my black fellas, mate?" We go down there. He's got a jail cell just on his farm.
That's so heavy.
And signs saying, "No, don't come here, tuberculosis," and so forth. And he goes, "Don't you stress out, mate. We haven't had black fellas in there since 82, mate." And we're going, 82 was... That's not ages ago. That's like... No. That's like...
Yeah.
82...
I have memories of 82.
Yeah, 82's like now, mate. And, coming from a New Zealand perspective, I'd gone to Aussie lots, but Melbourne, Sydney...
Yes.
You don't... And that's...
You see a couple of celebratory Aborigines busking in the...
Yeah.
If you're lucky, yeah, that's right.
And it's also like what really hurt me was thinking of all my left-wing... flat white drinking mates talking about the answer to these Aboriginal problems.
Yeah.
But then actually being there and seeing them and hearing them talk, and the older Aboriginal people going, "We refuse to tell the young ones the history and the story because they're pissed on the side of the road, and we don't think they deserve the story." But it's not a written history, so if that stops, just disappears.
That's right.
And so we were getting all involved in this.
So hang on, just to backtrack, that's fascinating. But so why was it that you, if you were filming a TV show, had effectively an entourage of Aboriginal people? Was that based on the fact they were friends with the guy that was helping you?
Yes, this is where the juxtaposition comes in. I've been sent over there to make a loose comedy show,
and you're getting make this political.
And then we start meeting all these people, and it's like we have this. We're telling the wrong story, bro. But then but we can't incorporate these heavyweight Aboriginal stories
into a music channel show where you roll a dice and decide.
Yeah, and we're drinking beers and talking shit to people because then we're disrespecting the story that's being told. So it was like, right, we've got to help these people while we're here and do what we can and show love because they really helped us. And then we've just got to do our thing and we've got to draw the line with this. But then we get down to Uluru, Ayers Rock, and we go into the local tribe and we go, "Look, we're going to film here. We're not going to walk on Uluru. You're not meant to walk on it." And it's just purely because the tribe think if someone dies, they're responsible for their spirit.
I bet tourists do it anyway, don't they?
Yeah. While we were there, a German guy climbed it. His Crocs melted to the rock, and he had to be airlifted off because it's what they call as an Eiselberg, which is an inland iceberg. So nothing can grow on it. So it's just like polished, hot rock.
If there's a German way to go, well, perhaps your Birkenstock would be the only...
He would have been fine if he was wearing Birkenstocks. But we get there, and the whole end to the show was we've been on this massive month mission. I crack a tiny bottle of champagne as the sun rises. Cheers, we made it.
Yeah.
The police come up. For Aboriginal respect, you can't drink here. And we went... Oh, we've just been into the tribe, we've run everything past them, they never mention the alcohol thing. And he goes, no, you've got to listen to us. Tourist bus pulls up, they all start cracking beers and drinking them. We go, what about them? And they said, they bought the licence to drink here. And it was like, so it's not an Aboriginal thing.
So do you think you were marked by the local cops because you had a relationship going with the Aboriginal people?
It was very...
Or they were just douchebags?
It was very much the you've seen... the other side of the curtain, you've seen Oz, like the thing of going, the white cops want to tell you what the Aboriginal laws are.
So do you think, because, that comparing Aussie to New Zealand thing, that's old as time itself, you think it was noticeably worse than when you've done work in small town New Zealand and dealt with police there? It really felt like you were going back, like you say, to kind of Rosa Parks era.
Yeah, well, I think because, granted, it's impossible for me to talk about this properly not being Māori, but the vibe is very different in terms of Māoris in the New Zealand police force.
Yeah.
You weren't seeing an Aboriginal policeman. No. And also, they just have their race. We are uncomparable because we're just complete. And
it's that swept away thing as well.
Yeah, and also, they can hide it. Because these people up in Tennant Creek in the middle of Australia,
that's what I mean.
They're never going to see the Melbourne person.
Yeah.
Whereas Aucklanders and Wellingtonians will go actually drive through small town New Zealand and we...
Out of sight, out of mind, eh?
Yeah, and whether the treaty is not a perfect outcome by any means, but it is an outcome, and they have zero outcome.
Yeah, well, they have zero. Yeah, they have zero.
It was very interesting meeting... A lot of heavyweight Māori get brought into Aboriginal tribes to sort out their tribes or in their negotiation because they're very different cultures in terms of a nomadic culture and a warrior culture.
Of a fighting culture, and I've often said to people, I think that's perhaps, us white New Zealanders can tap ourselves on the back all we want for how it's better here, but perhaps we had a bit more of a feisty, native race.
It would have been the same as Aussie if the Māori culture hadn't stood up and fought them.
I've said that to other people in the past, and they've kind of looked at me like, it's a bit weird, that's a bit radical, but I've thought about that.
Well, we don't. I don't think white people should pat themselves on the back for the treaty because I don't think that was the ideal outcome that the colonists were looking for.
Specifically the treaty. I just mean when people talk about, they go, Australia and their race relations. It's a shocking, But hang on a minute.
We're all cut from the same English cloth, so yeah. But no, that was...
Hey, anyway, so was the show funny?
Yeah. No, so the show worked out well.
Yeah.
Mainly because we met Aussies on cattle stations who just... They see a camera and they want to start showing off. We almost got killed on so many occasions in croc-infested waters where they go, we'll just drive down here, mate. And then I'm in a submerged... four-wheel drive bike, and I'm standing on top of it with a shotgun.
Like a quad?
Yeah, on a quad bike.
The most common thing to get killed on.
But this isn't flipping over. I'm standing on it with a shotgun while he is chest-deep pushing us out of croc-infested waters. And these things, at the time, they're just happening. Yeah. And then at the end of the day, when we look back at it and go... This guy goes, hop in the copter, mate. I've taken the doors off so it looks a bit more Magnum PI. He has got a coffee mug with rum in it, and he's taking off while loading his rifle. And I've never been more stressed
So
out.
the pilot has a coffee mug of rum.
Yeah.
And it's taken off with one hand, loading his rifle with the other.
His cattle station is the size of the North Island. It goes from the centre of Australia up and out through Western Australia. So he flies round it on a chopper, monitoring different parts of it.
So how does someone that loose end up with sort of such a successful venture? Is it handed down to him or what?
Well, I don't know if it is. The thing that really knocked me was how little of that you could actually have cattle on, because it is just rock. Yeah. So there's just little pockets of, when I say pockets, they're huge, but it's not like New Zealand where you fly over and there's
lush pasture.
No, and we drive 1,000 k's in a straight line, and every 1,000 k's there has to be a small town purely for petrol. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just driving dead straight. It looks the same. There's just hard guys who just drink mid-strength beer from the second they get up.
Yeah, in that sweltering heat. Yeah, it sounds like, it's funny, I've lived 6 or 7 years in Australia, and, it sounds like you saw the Australia that's very different to New Zealand. Was that one of the most interesting things you've done? That show?
That was because it was 4 of us. There were 5 of us on the road in a bus. It was one of those, when you spend that much time, we became really close.
Good, because it could go 2 ways, right?
Yeah. But also because we were witnessing this craziness, we became quite a unit. And just travelling through where you pull up to a pub, they've got pet crocodiles and these massive and just cinder block pubs that they hose out at the end of the day. So the show ended up being funny. It was just such a mindfuck that then coming back, and we'd done that. New Zealand and Australia, they were really successful, and then the global financial crisis hit just as we were about to go and do America, and then
that would have been nuts.
And then all the money fell out of it, and I was in this position of going, I thought I was just slowly carving my path of TV work, and then it was, you don't have any TV work. The benefit of being a stand-up is I can always fall back, so I fell back to touring.
Your audiences had to have got bigger after that. If you had all these people late teens,
what it meant is
you built an audience for your stage stuff.
Yeah, what it meant was I could relentlessly tour New Zealand. Like I've pretty much gigged in every town that's got a pub big enough, and so it was myself, a guy. I toured 3 years myself, a guy called Sam Wills, who is the boy with tape on his face now, who's just blown up.
Was he talking on stage back then?
Oh, yeah, he was. He was a full punk magician.
From the recesses of my mind, I kind of recognise that guy. He's not a Wellingtonian, is he?
No, he's from Christchurch. He did a lot of work in Wellington.
I feel I definitely feel like maybe I interviewed him on the radio or something back in the day because I saw him recently and I was like,
no, he was sort of like a punk busker, comedian, magician. Yeah. And back then, he would just tear a room apart. And a guy called Gish, who is a Māori parody.
Still around?
Yep. So he's still around. Sam's just... It was one of those things where you check Facebook and go, whoa, he's got millions of... Oh, he's on a... What he?
You missed all of that. Did you miss all of that?
No, that was one of those things. You know how somehow you can come into something a bit late, and where it was like,
it's the modern world.
This has spiraled out of control. Because I suppose, as I've become more public, my actual online presence has pulled back in a way.
It's funny with him. I was thinking because the out of control thing. I watched because I missed. Well, I didn't miss it. I don't watch American Idol, so how could I see it to begin with? But I went and caught up with it on YouTube, and I saw how many views those videos had, and I thought, because I noticed they were under the American Idol brand, and I thought, that's a bit of a bummer for him, because if that falls apart on him, there was almost a living to be made there from the amount of YouTube views he was
that's
getting,
what I was thinking.
Or the company was getting.
Or that franchise, what they'd be monetising their 2-minute clips on YouTube would be massive.
So you thought about that too?
Yeah, no, that's my first thing exactly was going, he's the only person in this clip, and I don't think he's getting a cent from it.
Yeah. So there was Gish, there was him, there was you.
And we would do...
There was a fourth person?
No, there was just us, and we would do Invercargill to Cape Reinga,
Wow.
and we'd just tour, and it was that thing of, it wasn't big money, but it was good money. And I've always been...
And it's life experiences.
Yeah, it's
and
life
doses.
experiences, and it's that thing of where I do that, I get a... start off with 20 minutes material, and then over a few tours I'd come back and I'd have a solid hour show that I could then do. Then I could do like Sky City in Auckland for a couple of nights and properly monetize it and make some money off it.
Don't a lot of comedians write most of the act? Are you one of those exceptions in that you sketch out, like you've said, about a third and then it turns into an hour?
Yeah,
I was understanding people like Louis and so on. Obviously they workshop bits and so on, and they develop and whatever. But I thought the norm was to have the larger part of the skeleton put together.
Yeah. Oh no, that I very much so. But what I mean is, like, I'd start out with that material, then another gag would work its way in, and then it was extend. Then that first 20 minutes I was doing, I'd go, I can just park that because all this other stuff's come up.
Yeah.
And then when it came to festival times, I would...
And you get your finger on the pulse of New Zealand in terms of all the way around what New Zealand's doing and what's funny in each town and what people are thinking. And
the good thing about touring is you definitely get those through lines if you go, right, this sort of angle works with 80% of Kiwis, so that gag's going to work. And it's the biggest brain melt to me was going down to the Christchurch Buskers Festival, and I'd been booked to do this pub, and my friend Mikey, who shot my stuff, came down with me and went, if stuff gets crazy, we'll film some stuff down there. I'm walking to the venue, and there's a queue, like probably about 3 blocks long, of people trying to get in, and the venue's already packed with 150 people, and just walking along, and start to realise these people have come to see me.
So see, you got your
that was the wow. Yeah. This is, and then that just sort of took off into a whirlwind of, I was sort of known as the guy who was just sort of a boozy, fun comic.
Yeah.
So then that sort of, I lived these few years of not going off the rails, but drinking too much, touring, partying.
So where are we now? Late 2000, late.
Yeah, mid to late 2000s.
Yeah, yeah.
And that thing of...
you did your teenage years 10 years later, Di.
Yeah, but then I'd already done my teenage years. So then it was... the one thing that I count my stars for is once I started getting on TV and getting famous, I met my now wife. Yeah. Before that, I met her in Aussie, so she never...
Is she Australian?
No, she's a West Aucklander, actually.
Funny how we all do that, eh?
Yeah. And so I've always been tight in that respect. Like, I've always had a very grounding, centering woman.
There's probably far less reason to go out partying and so on if you've met someone you know you're going to marry, and that's where all your attention lies, unless, of course, they want to party 24/7.
Yeah, but the thing is, you're just with mates and you're away and you've just played a full house and your adrenaline's going and you're in your 20s.
That's the big one that gets me is, when I listen to whether it's comedians or, because like we both said at the beginning, we listen to far too many podcasts, whether it's comedians or rock stars or especially those performers that tend to go on at night, I go, what the fuck else do you do with all that excitement and energy and adrenaline and crowd adoration and yada 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 yada?
Well, I can't have
the ones that clean up. I go, man, that really requires quite a shift in your planning after you get off stage.
Yeah, like I changed around because I definitely had issues with booze, not like medically alcoholic, where I could take time off and not have physical. A big party drinker, but then that becomes because of my lifestyle, then I could start drinking during the day, and then
you drink now.
Yeah, I drink now, but it definitely got to a point where it was causing not massive issues in relationship, but where I go, if this continues, I'm going to fuck this relationship up. And so
your story is not an uncommon one.
No. No, well, that's the thing is...
and I think the more people that talk about it,
it's a tragically common one, actually. And the thing is, so before it got out of hand, my wife and I we had big chats, and then I did 3 months off the booze and got involved with this these cats over in Aussie called Hello Sunday Morning,
I've seen
their
that.
vibes,
Yeah.
taking some time off the booze. It's not, alcohol's bad, you got to give it up. It's took 3 months off, then eased back into it, and it's done. Now I've got 2 kids and married, so that has naturally pulled things apart. And my studies have always been in Eastern religion. I spent a lot of time in Japan.
You're doing more study.
No, like my studies were. I do a lot of, I suppose, personal study and Zen and Buddhism and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And meditation's a huge part of my life. So I sort of replaced things, and I got to a stage where I went, I just want to do comedy. And so now whenever I do a festival show, I'll be off the booze when I'm running material and start the show, and then I'll start having a few beers after the show once I've got it running, because it was that thing of going,
you just got better systems in place,
and
better operational systems,
which naturally happen, because to be honest, people either burn out and their manic creativity only lasts when they're young, and then they become that pissed dude on stage who can't really manage his shit. I remember thinking that of an album that was really seminal to me was the Streets album.
The first one,
Mike Skinner, first one. And then I remember seeing him 3 times, and he was
he just going...
Just slowly.
Wow.
He had anxiety.
I was going to say, that sounds very much like a bedroom album. I could see how being on stage would
completely.
Make
then he had these anxiety issues that he tried to cure with booze, and then he ended up disrespecting his fans by being so fucked on stage, and so I could see that and going. And then I had times on stage. My upside is, which is also a downside, is I'm a fun drunk.
Yeah.
So it wasn't angry, punch someone, break my hand, tell everyone to get fucked, and then I'm remorseful and
laugh and fall into a hedge.
Like it wasn't. It wasn't like mates going, dude, you can't drink. It was like dude going, dude, you're great fun. We're gonna get hammered again. And so then I started getting a bit of anxiety in that, and so I've sort of pared that back a bit. And we went to see Bruce Springsteen on the weekend. Great. And 2 weekends ago went to Sydney and saw Guns N' Roses, and it was I got so much respect for these sober old bands. Bruce Springsteen was 1 minute late on stage. He played, I don't know, did he used to be a big drinker? No, he's been sober for a long time. But like Guns N' Roses, everyone on the whole crew has to be sober. You drink, you're kicked off. Yeah, I saw them in '93. It was a different story then. Yeah. But now like they're tight. They play straight for 3 hours, no breaks. Bruce Springsteen at 67, I go, shit, if I look like that at 47, I'm going to be happy. And just going, people who then like re-embrace their talent and just go, I'm going to just nail it. Yeah, I was going to add into this mix Keith Richards just for where there's yin, there's yang. I think if he got off everything, he would cease to be alive. Who knows, man? Maybe when you're that wealthy, you maybe you get regular new fills of embalming fluid. Who knows? Full blood transfusions, But like with maybe a few mils of embalming fluid in the blood each night. Who knows? Who knows how it works? But like I will, when there's a concert I really want to go to, usually go over to Aussie, because it's so nice when no one recognises you, going to a concert, because I'm a smaller dude. Oh, so do you... I never thought about that here, because you're very much in the mainstream media, so do you always have someone tap you on the shoulder? Yeah, it's... What about when you leave here today? Will some stranger during the day come up and... Oh, usually, like people would... Like a guy just came up and had a selfie while I was having a coffee just before I came here. But because I'm quite weird. Because I've always been a pub comic and I'm an approachable guy. Like I'm not the aggressive dude on stage or the bogan who's telling people to get fucked. Just a happy Kiwi. And but the problem is you'll be at a band and then there's just a pissed big dude yelling in your face, and I can't hear you, just spitting in my face. And Kiwis, you very much get that 7 days. Kiwis get that where if I go, oh bro, I'm just trying to watch the gig there. Oh, too fucking good, yeah, mate. Too fucking good for us, mate. And also, it is Kiwi, especially, not putting road workers all in the same group, but Kiwis who tend to want to go hard on the straight up homophobia or racism as their go-to for a gag, even if they're not homophobic or racist. And so that's the opener.
How does that relate to road workers?
Oh no, so I'll be walking along with my kid and... Excuse the word, you probably don't use it in your circles. It fell out of my circles, but it is still in New Zealand. I'm walking along with a 4-year-old in the road. Hey, you're that funny fucking faggot off fucking TV, aren't you? Hey, mate, it's that fucking homo from the TV. And it's like, dude, I'm with a 4-year-old. And you know, because that F word is that very much...
Yeah, that's me.
That fell out of the lexicon of sort of my wider group of friends a long time ago.
When we're about standard 3, standard 4.
Yeah. So, but then you realise that it's... And so it's very affronting. Yeah. And then you realise, these dudes, that's just a throwaway. So...
Well, it's like Aussies calling people cunt. And if you say that in America, it's like, that's a deeply offensive word, you know, same sort of thing. It's just it's a filler.
I used... jumping around here, my biggest sort of... you know how I was saying I had a shambles festivals while I was overseas? After I've been doing well over here, I got invited to the Just for Laughs festival in Montreal.
Kind of a big deal.
Where Joan Rivers was the MC.
Yeah.
I was performing, and it went amazingly, but I used the word cunt on stage. Yeah. And what it was over here, it was very much a rhythmic filler in this particular bit, because it was like exactly that kind of guy, that Kiwi.
Yeah.
And over there... It is like you've fired a gun in the roof.
Yeah, I heard
like,
it's so bad.
Well, it's just like such a punctuation. And for me, it's that... I only did it once because I went, this has just derailed my next 5 lines.
And I suppose it kind of internally shook you. You have to process all that.
Because then it shooks me. It's like...
all the stuff would go through your head.
Yeah, it's like, fuck, the temperature's just changed. This is usually a big laugh moment. Yeah. And then it's... it's cunt. That's what did it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then you don't want to overthink it because it's like you've got an aggressive dog coming at you. You just want to stay calm.
I was just thinking, because I've started teaching in the last few years, and I've talked to a few people about it's got better as I've got better at it. But it's always tiring to one degree or another, and I've worked out I think it's because there's one part of me that's performing. There's another part of me that's thinking about where the performance goes from there. And then there's a third part of me doing all those little micro processes like you're talking about, like, you know, what room and stuff. So that's me in front of 25 or 30 students. Like, do you find it is it a process that quite wears you out on a big stage, you know? Yeah,
as the stage gets bigger...
Do you relate to that, I say, with the different
completely.
ways of minds working?
For me, there's 2 kinds of gigs. There's a gig where you're almost out of your body watching yourself do it.
Yeah.
And you're slightly on autopilot.
Yeah.
And then something random will happen.
Yeah.
And it throws you back into the situation.
Yeah.
And then there's the dream gigs, which you probably have when you're teaching, where it's just fluid, where you're not, where that's happening, but it's very much in the background.
It's called flow.
Yeah, when you've got the flow is going.
Yeah.
And that's always nerve-wracking overseas because you talk yourself out of it. You go,
it can't be going this well.
Yeah, it can't be going well, or are they understanding me? Are they like? But then I suddenly went, finally, I'm the guy with the weird accent. Because in New Zealand, when I was coming through, it was always the Irish guys could say anything. Where you go, your actual written jokes are pretty average, but your accent and your delivery is winning these Kiwis over. And then I go, I'm over there, and they're going, they're just laughing at my accent.
I've actually thought about that, and don't let me hear me out here because I think the man's a genius. Billy Connolly, just stunning material, a lot of it thought up on the fly and so on. But if you took away the Scottish accent, would he be as magically Billy as he is, you know?
I have thought about...
Imagine an American Billy.
Yeah.
You know, the material would still be stunning, but there's something in that...
So I've thought about this sort of...
drawl.
But then... The Glaswegian drawl is intricately tied to the story as well, because totally. I've thought about the same thing, but it ends up being one parcel because the colloquialisms that come through the story. Yeah. He's a great example of using colloquialisms way more than an average Glaswegian might, but that colour paints the picture to people who have no frame of reference.
I was thinking it's like you say with the ship, with the Aborigines. Obviously, we're not going back tens of thousands of years here, but that is an oral storytelling tradition passed from working class Scottish man to working class Scottish man. You're right.
Yeah.
It's a particular style that he certainly didn't. He didn't pioneer. He's just perfected for.
No, and him like our bugbear as comics is always like, because you do some corporate work and so forth, and people just think of comedy as, oh, you just get up there and swear, don't you? And then going, oh,
think of a couple of things in the car.
Yeah. But then it's the flip side to bands, because bands, they get booed if they don't play the same stuff. Comics get booed if someone comes along and they've heard the joke before. So you've got to make old material sound like new material. But it's the thing of going, swearing, like the upside of it can be beautiful, like Billy Connolly.
Absolutely.
Like when it's used properly, like when I'm working material, I'll swear so much. And then when that material is honed down, there'll be 80% less swearing in it. Because it's a tick, you're nervous,
Yeah, I know what you mean. It can either be a sort of a cheap stopgap, or it can be a really great colour and sort of energy.
Yeah, and like because when used properly, the way it is in modern day, it's almost a form of punctuation sometimes, of a little throwaway or a.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I apologies to any, and if you do, that's fine. That's great. But any adults still into. I remember when I was about 11 or 12, Form 1 or 2, someone brought a Kevin Bloody Wilson tape to school, and we all thought it was bloody great. Yeah. Some of the funniest stuff we've ever heard. I listened to it recently, it's like, no, it's just lots of bad swearing.
Yeah. No, but to kids, well, I remember, which weirdly...
Definitely for 11, 12-year-olds or...
For me, that tape was Delirious by Eddie Murphy.
Come on, that's...
No, but the thing is that... Aside from the epic AIDS gay homophobia, it fully stands up. Like
I'm saying that Kevin Bloody Wilson doesn't for me.
No, absolutely.
Delirious stuff.
And I saw,
even though he's channeling Pryor, he still very much does it his own way.
Yeah, he actually had more political things to say about how black communities were. Kevin Bloody Wilson was a guy with a guitar.
Hey, Santa Claus.
Yeah, just doing basically poo gags and swearing. Yeah.
But it's to the people you met who had Aborigine cages in the back of their
who loved it. So who had been drinking mid-strength beer since 6 o'clock that morning, and they get there at 8 o'clock. But one of my great challenges has been Family Feud, where it's so different.
Nice segue. I wanted to ask about this because the game show tradition is, I don't know, it's a trip. I just tell me about fronting a game show. So
I'd been 7 Days had established itself. For a quick backstory where we'd left off, where this global financial crisis had happened, I'd been gigging around. Then 7 Days came up out of the blue. I got asked to do a pilot for it. We'd been doing similar sort of shows, and then it just took off.
2010 or
This 2009.
Yep.
And then it took off, and it's become a life of its own. Now we're into our 8th year now.
It's one of the most established and entrenched New Zealand shows around.
Yeah, and it's a joy going around New Zealand and seeing how much people watch it as families and so forth. And then I had a meeting about a different sort of show idea there was another sort of travel show, and coming out of it, Andrew Schusterman again, who had given me my first job, goes to me, we're going to get the franchise of Family Feud, do you want to host a game show? And the first thing that came to my mind was, no fucking way, mate.
I thought you were going to say, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not like going... Because, I just suddenly think, game show. I've always been this edgy comic. I'm on 7 Days...
People will think my career's going down.
I'm on 7 Days of the loose one. And you guys, just watch a couple of episodes. So I watched it, and then I went, actually, this is... fully for me. It's a game show where it's not about knowledge, it's about having fun. Steve Harvey had set it up as sort of in America it's the most complained about show on
How could it be complained about? It's pretty middle of the road.
Not Steve Harvey's one's very much because there it's a late night show,
Right.
and
okay.
it's all about finding dildos in your bedside drawer and.
Larry, talk to 100 men. Name the first part of a woman you touch to get her in the mood. Let's quit playing, Larry.
Let's play. That would be the lower front or the vagina. I didn't want to say it.
You ain't want to say it. Well, you know what's happening, no Larry. You know good hell well that ought to be number one. He said the lower front. Yeah, down there on the prairie. Down there by Homeland Security. Down there by the Promised Land. Down there where the deer and the antelope play. Home on the range. Land of the free. Home of the brave. Down there in the lower front. The 40 acres and a mule. Down front.
So
It's not 5:30.
no, but Aussie is very much straight. So we went over to Australia and filmed a pilot over there, and I just enjoyed doing it because
Why did you film the pilot over there? What, with Australian families?
No, with Kiwi families, but because they had the set there, we bought the franchise off Fremantle, who is the Aussie people. So basically we could use their crew, their set. We just got some Kiwis who were living on the Gold Coast and that, and who were in Australia, so they knew the format. The pilot went well, and I went, actually I love it. And weirdly, that it's so 90s from the graphics to the whole thing, but because New Zealand hasn't had a game show for so long, it's like because I was thinking when we haven't actually had because we've always brought them in.
We've just had reality shows and Aussie game shows.
Yeah. So then it was we could really make this something and just get Kiwi families on, and it has been such an awesome challenge for me of being 5:30. I've got to be funny, but I've got to be clean and and not double entendre clean, like just
not even a double every 5 episodes.
No, occasionally.
Yeah,
and
if one of the family members initiates something,
and so that's been an awesome challenge of sort of having to add another string to my bow and have a different challenge, because you know when you're stuck in not stuck in a rut with 7 days, but when you're doing the same thing, it's like I need to stretch things out.
I totally get it. The two stories have come together. You said, how long 7 days has been going. It's a roaring success. You're still enjoying it, but you could end up just feeling like you're going through the motions and not really expanding and doing anything.
And doing that gives me sort of the two ends of the spectrum, because where I can just keep it tight, going for cleaner, more focused gags on Family Feud, and then on 7 days it's just right. Here's all the things I've been thinking while I've been filming.
Now you're like driving around in the car and stuff during the day and walking past the construction crew and stuff, thinking of clean one-liners for Family Feud.
I must say, I've gone from hey, it's the faggot off the TV to Family Guy. Hey, it's Family Guy. Which is now my go-to.
So they can't even get the name of the show right.
No, and I go, actually, I think I was Family Guy. That's fine. He's the Family Guy.
So how does it work? It's like, so what, you knock off 5 eps in a day? Like how's it recorded?
Yeah.
How long? So without advertisements, what, 22 minutes of TV?
No, we're longer because we start off and then we extended. So we're 5:25 till 6 o'clock with ads. So we're
about 25 minutes of TV.
Yeah, we're 25, 27 minutes of.
So how long will that be? how long will that be in filming in terms of how much is taken out?
Basically,
getting amateurs in terms of family members to kind of...
Yeah, the upside of a game show is once you're going, you're just going because you have to keep the flow on.
Well, I suppose everyone can play a board game, can't they? So I suppose they don't struggle with...
Yeah, and you can't pick things up because they can't change your answer. So, aside from, it'll take us 50 minutes to film an episode. We do 5 a day because if the families are from out of town, they can't just keep coming back and forth.
So if you do 10 in a weekend, that's 2 weeks of programming taken care of.
Yeah.
So are you saying sometimes you've got a backlog of 5 and sometimes you've got a backlog of 15 or 20?
Yeah.
You just come in according to...
Because it depends of the joys of New Zealand, and we film on weekends so the families can do it, is we need these on-site broadcasting trucks. But if there's 2 big rugby games, that knocks out all the trucks in New Zealand. so a lot of the timing...
Why do you need trucks? Wouldn't you just do it in the TV studio?
Yeah, there's not TV studios in New Zealand really. So this harks back to Avalon. So we're in.
So you even for 7 days, which goes on every single week, you need to hire an outside broadcaster.
So we are now 7 days. We figured out that who does have money is people who gamble. So we're down in the TAB building there because they've got plush studios down by...
What does people having studios have to do with people gambling?
Because that's where they do all their trackside stuff from. So they have studios with seating and stuff. That's all air conditioned and...
What kind of upside down world do we live in where we have no real TV studios left in New Zealand, and the TAB's got the best broadcast facilities in the country? God.
Because there's the studios for doing all the news and that, but the thing with Family Feud and 7 days is we need to get an audience in.
So they do have sorry, I'm hanging on this point.
Yeah.
So they do have a studio for the news and so on, and for breakfast TV.
Yeah, that's all done, but that can't have it's just a studio. It doesn't have room for a live audience in it. It's a studio where you can put a live audience in.
Yeah.
And so we're down, they film an hour one, Jono and Ben and Family Feud. And so the scheduling, because when you're trying to make 260 eps in a year and you're trying to only film it on weeks...
60 episodes, wow.
When you're, and then you're only filming on weekends, your windows start to fall down. So often we'll do 3 weekends in a row or 2 weekends in a row. Ideally, it's every second weekend. So basically, we're filming to...
End of February 2017, how many are in the can at present?
End of February would be, at the moment, we're about 2 weeks ahead.
Wow. So it's
because
kind
we've
of on the line.
Yeah, because we've had the Christmas break and so forth. Yeah. But it's for me, it's an exhausting day. I'll get there.
Oh, sure.
And
you're doing effectively a stand-up show after a stand-up show after a stand-up show after a stand-up show.
It works a bit like a Formula One type race where I'll do an episode, come off, stand while someone changes me, and another person talks to me about who the next families are, going, okay, these guys are from Gisborne. If you get a chance, talk to him. He's a lorry driver who's got a crazy story. They're obsessed with chicken farming. You've got to chat to... And so they're doing that. Then I grab the car, straighten the bow tie and back out there, which is quite awesome as your adrenaline keeps up.
Yeah.
But this is going back to the thing of...
So the game show host pit crew is the thing.
Yeah. This goes back almost to the drinking thing of going, now you've got to be in that just clear, sharp zone.
If you tied one on Friday and you did that on the Saturday, you'd be...
No, because your energy levels... Because for me, it's like also I've got to watch things of not smashing too much coffee or Red Bull, because you don't want to be peaking. Yeah. You've just got to be on this steady train going through. And what amazes me is with 7 days we had a small crew. We got such a big crew, and they're all friends, and that idea of having a good vibe rubs off on everyone.
Is this with 7 days?
With Family Feud.
Family Feud, yeah.
Where it rubs off on the live audience who are there, the families, and when everyone's in a good mood, it just sort of hums along.
So do you have to do some fluffing, as it were, before the cameras start rolling at the beginning and get the crowd kind of...
Oh, we have a guy who looks after the audience, Sam Smith, who's awesome. Because I did that for years as audience warm-up.
For 7 days or another show.
No, for Snatch Our Booty, which was a game show that didn't last very long with Nathan Rari and John Bridges. Sort of.
It's got a vagina and an ass reference in the title.
Exactly. No holds barred. It was Oscar Kitely and sort of the Ice TV guys.
Yeah.
And then I'd done it for that, and then we went through our own sort of reality Sing Like a Superstar, and I think that was the name of it, where it was, singing contestant shows. And it went so... I was doing audience warm-up out at in Manukau at the Walker, sort of big Walker event centre out there.
Yeah.
The show just fell apart, and they went, you've got to go out and just do if you could fill in for about an hour. And it was, what? I went out there and I was filling in for an hour 30. I did 2 full festival shows to an audience who are like 13-year-olds, to like to a group of 30 special needs people who have been brought in from a health facility, to a weird group of retirement people. So it was like
grabbing your tie.
You played a one group, you're losing everyone, but plus there are heaps of 13-year-olds, so you can't have any edge. And it's like, I'm out there, and then every time I'd look over to the director, and keep talking, and it's just like... But once again, it's those things that just... Basically, where I go, now when I go onto stage...
Well, they kind of make you military tuned, don't they? They're sort of like, yeah...
When I walk onto stage now, I go, actually, I don't think anything worse can happen to me than what already has. So that's quite a nice vibe.
So just before we've got just under 10 minutes left, man. 7 days. I mean, I don't know how often you've been asked to kind of talk about behind the scenes on that show, but it is such a as I say, such a well received and such a well known show in New Zealand now. What about the process of filming that, man? How does that work? Is it how long of you guys throwing jokes around and so on is edited into an episode?
Well, see, this is the thing, because we go really... 7 days is huge. Yeah. We'll film for 3 hours to get a half-hour television hour. So
the whole wheat and chaff thing.
Yeah, that's the thing of where the producers from the get-go have always gone, look, we want this to be unscripted riffing. Yeah. But unfortunately, to do that, you can't go live, because no matter how...
Even just the different people trying to interact with each other.
And also, you want to film long so people don't feel they need to cut people off and compete. Because we're like... There's no covering it. Every... basically, wherever a country has comedians, they have a panel show, right? Like, there's Mock the Week, there's Spicks and Specks, there's Nevermind the Buzzcocks. No one stole from anyone. Everyone has their own games, but that idea of comedians sitting on a panel talking is as old as there's been TV and comics. So, overseas, they film short amount of time on things like Mock the Week, but it means it's competitive.
Right.
It means I've got this line, we know we're going to... Because you can narrow down what you're going to talk about. We'll get a heads up, okay, like, we're probably going to... We've been off air, we haven't covered Trump, so there's going to be a Trump story. Yep. So you got... And you're watching the news going, if that comes up, I've got a line out. But over there, I've got to get that bloody line out. So you're sniping.
So how do you think that changes the... What are you saying? What's the net result there?
Well, the net result there is dominant alpha male comedians get screen time.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas, especially over here, we've got, a lot of men and women who are more lackadaisical.
Yep.
So it's more about where they can find space and then drop that dry, slower line.
Which probably makes overall, once you edit it down, for a much nicer kind of flow rather than...
right. And also it means that we get made to look really good, because aunts will come up and in the live room might pause for 15 seconds to think of something. Yeah. But then that's cut out, so on TV it's like, bam, just firing.
Right.
So people are like, you're so quick, dude, and going, no.
I didn't know that. So sometimes even little ums and ahs.
Yeah, because 15 seconds of people going,
So you're your editor needs to have comic timing as well, because not everyone has that, you know?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
It's not just about ticking.
Because an editor, even who didn't have comic timing, even a second or so's difference could really
because
make some
it's
jokes fall
little
flat.
it's little things like if someone has a killer line and it gets a big laugh there, you can't cut it out too quickly because the people at home are laughing at that and miss the next piece,
and then it starts sounding canned.
Because it's just like ha ha. But so we just and the thing is we've all worked together for so long that it's really enjoyable. Obviously, it can be like hard when you're not in a. It can be when you're sick or you're not in a good mood.
No one's on all the time. Yeah.
No, but it's 90% of it's fun, and we know when we have overseas guests, they just say we really love filming this. We like being part of it.
If that's 3 hours, is that a set day every week?
Every Thursday night we do that.
Oh wow! Because you have to be topical up to the minute, so that gives you about 24 hours to cut it to air.
The only time it bit us on the arse was when Michael Jackson died on a Friday morning.
What'd you do?
Well, sort of it's okay when someone dies because you don't necessarily want to be going hard in on the humour thing.
That's right. That one would be okay, leaving it for a week. Just trying to figure out there.
Because, and also because Michael Jackson was such a sort of comedy trope in a way that it wasn't going to end well. The hardest time was New Zealand went through this patch where there was the Christchurch earthquake and Pike River, and that just dominated the news, and they were both stories that had no angle.
Well, they're also both stories where there were a reasonable number of New Zealanders who were very, very sensitive.
Yeah.
You know.
And it wasn't until we went down and did a show in Christchurch, and we just, we got this vibe, and they were, just get stuck in, mate.
Is that what they said?
Just go for it.
Yeah.
And we went for it, and they just loved it. That real Kiwi thing. This is obviously once time had passed and a bit of healing had happened. And, mainly it was we're getting stuck in because they were getting fucked over by the EQC and all this. So, it was that thing of that seeing great cathartic comedy.
I've heard more than one stand-up comedian talk about this in terms of 9/11, and I'm not that much of a comedy Poindexter, I'm going to remember who it is, but there's one comic who's basically known, or at least widely known, for being the first person who got on stage and went, right, we're gonna laugh about this in the name of healing.
Yeah.
Do you think there is a time frame? Do you think if you're the right comic you can get on the day after something and do it, or do you think out of respect there needs to be? I mean, I know you're not going to consult a rule book here and go,
no, but
clause 4.3 says
this is where comedy, the comedian feels a vibe, and this is the thing about a live thing. You can be on stage and you can just feel that that's the right thing to say, and it goes down well. And this is why it's detrimental to comedy when people transcript what was said in a comedy club and make a comedian a pariah for this when they haven't
because they
read.
Weren't in the room.
They weren't in the room. They didn't see the lead up to it. They didn't feel a vibe. They didn't. Comedy is so laced with irony and twists that literally the words someone said might be racist, but if you were in the room, you understood the twist that they were laughing at the racist, not the victim. And so when people take one sentence out of a 20-minute bit and go, he used the word nigger or whatever, that's out, but they don't see the twist on it. So you could get up if you had the right line, because it might be someone heckled something and then that sparked a little quip about 9/11, then that was a release.
Yes. Yeah.
Because people,
and it was for the benefit of the whole room.
Comedy is about releasing tension so much of the time. It's about building people up or leading people down the garden path and then flipping it, and they're laughing at the fact of, I thought he was going to hook into Asian people there, but then boom, he's flipped it completely, so that's but then I never want to go down that route of what so much John Cleese and people have been going down, that there's all these pretty snowflakes who are too offended in universities.
Just read my mind. That was going to be my last.
Oh
question.
no,
Yeah. I was going to say, do you think that's happening here? Are we getting thinner skinned? Because I saw some old Billy T on Māori TV, and I thought, wow, that would probably be shot down as, I don't know whether that would make it onto TV now, but it's amazing and brilliant, and it's commentary, and it's,
Billy T. I find that, so I've rewatched all of Billy T's stuff. Yeah. It's of a time and a place. Yeah. If a white person said that, they would be one of the most racist people ever to go on television because he said some pretty full-on things. Yeah. But the thing is, he was speaking for a voice of Maori at the time. I look at it how...
he was speaking of a voice of Maori for about decades beforehand because no one else had been able to.
I look at it as a group like NWA releasing Fuck the Police or something like that, where they are sounding like gangsters, but they're releasing the tension of police who have been fucking with black people in America since day one. He is being that guy.
Well, my racist grandfather liked him, so that was a coup for Māori.
Well, the line was, Billy T was the Māori you could take home to your mother. Yeah. That's what white people thought of him of, and Maori people saw him as a voice. Yeah. But no, I don't think we're getting thinner skinned. I think that if people want to hold on to the past of, we're just more offensive now, we could say homo, we could do that. Well, you can't now, but you can still be funny. Yeah. You've got to move with the times. You can
still touch on those topics. But you've just
there's a difference of, I think, people.
You can't be enemy for going, it'll be a funny faggot.
Yeah, but I don't care if you're offended by what I'm saying, but I'll put thought in, because I want to be offended. I like reading things that offend me because it makes me challenge my point of view. It makes me go, I need to read more about that. I don't care if you believe something completely different to me. We can have a screaming argument and still be friends. That, I feel, is a bit... I don't know whether... when you see Twitter and so forth, someone says one thing, then it turns into this firestorm of going, no, you're allowed to have different ideological opinions. So, but then I don't think that someone can get up in a environment, do a bad rape joke, and then go, oh, mate, you can't handle it, or you're offended. We're going, yes.
So, no, you're just a shit comedian.
Yeah, you're a shit comedian who's offended that they can't just say a bad rape joke and go... Because, sure, people who would have seen me when I was younger, I've probably done some bad rape jokes, right? But as I grew up, I realised what a serious issue that is, and that very quickly fell out. Because I spoke to people who have been affected by sexual abuse and so forth, and I'm going, what? So, I can get a cheap laugh from 50% of the audience when I might deeply offend and deeply hurt someone in there. So, I think you can always be funny, but you have to be contemporary. You have to read the time. Yeah. So, I don't buy into a lot. It's just sometimes a lot of people who want to be offensive, and then they just complain that people were offended.
I think that's a good place to end. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Cheers, Lewis.